Muslim community, there's a very relevant scenario. And that is, many times we see younger people, youth, children, younger people, they can oftentimes become a little more inclined to the deen than maybe their parents are. They can start practicing the deen maybe before their parents do. They can start learning about the deen a little more than their parents have. And that starts to create a conflict. That starts to create a problem. Because now the parents are uncomfortable with the situation, and the child feels the need and feels the necessity to inform the parents of what he's learned and what he knows and what he would like to share, what he's realized. He wants to share that with his family and his parents. And the parents are obviously not comfortable taking advice and counsel from quote-unquote somebody whose diapers I used to clean. Right? I mean, and I'm not trying to mock it by saying that. That's the true, honest sentiment. And you really don't know what that sentiment's like unless you have actually clean diapers. Right? You don't know that sentiment. Because, no, you feel like, I took care of this human being. I raised this human being. I take care of this human being. And so to think of the fact that this person now that they're grown up, and they benefited from everything I provided to them for 15, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever the age is, then now this person thinks that they are in a position to tell me what's right and wrong. So it's a very, very difficult situation. It's very difficult to maneuver and to manage and to reconcile. So how do we go about that situation? Now I want you to understand this. I want you to listen very carefully. He says, Ya abati, إِذْ قَالَ لِأَبِيهِ Ya abati. Alright, so let's deconstruct this word Ya abati to begin with. So Ya is, of course, obviously the way you call out to someone. Alright, the way you call out to someone. Oh, like it's formally translated, but the way you speak to someone, when you address someone, Ya. In Arabic, Ya is for addressing someone. Abati. Now, the original form of this word is Abi. Abi, which means my father. Abi, my father. But the Ya, which means my, has been replaced with a ta. Now, already as it is, it's an established thing within classical Arabic. Saying Ya abati, abati in this tone, is a very endearing, soft, loving tone. It means my dear father. My dear father. Alright, and that sounds very formal as well. It's almost like a child when speaking to their dad, they would say, Daddy. Abu, please listen. Abu, I really need to talk to you. In that type of a tone. It's a very endearing tone, and some of the scholars, scholars of the language, they actually point out that the reason why the ya is replaced with the ta, and it's not replaced completely with the round ta, which is a feminine ta, but it's replaced with the long ta. But nevertheless, it is a ta because whenever you hear the ta at the end of a word in the Arabic language, what type of, right away, what idea do you get? Where does your mind immediately go? It goes towards feminine. It goes towards feminine. And so it borrows that connotation. It borrows from that connotation, that love, that affection, that kindness, that generosity. So it has a very loving tone to it, a very soft, gentle, feminine type tone to it. Ya abati, my dear, dear father. So first of all, he begins in a very respectful, in a very loving tone. And this is, again, the Quran speaks very comprehensively, very concisely. The way you could understand this is, he starts off by first expressing the love, the affection, the kindness, and the admiration that he has for his father. Too often, these types of conversations, where the child feels the need to go and tell the parents, I learned this, I see you're not doing this, and I think you need to start doing that. Far too often, those conversations begin with, you're completely wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. I have to explain something to you. It too often begins in that way. So we see Ibrahim a.s. teaching us a lesson here. Those type of conversations, because they are so much more difficult, they need to begin with stating love, and stating admiration and showing affection. That, Dad, you know I love you. You know I admire you. You know I appreciate everything that you've done for me. You know how much I respect you, Dad. So that's how he starts off. Ya abati. Then he goes on to say, Lima ta'budu. Lima in the Arabic language is to pose a question. Why? Ta'budu, why do you worship? Why do you devote and dedicate yourself? Ma la yasma'u wa la yubsiru, to that which does not hear and does not see. Wa la yughni anka shay'an, and it will not benefit you in any way. So he's posing a question. He's saying, God, tell me please, why do you worship something that can't hear, that can't see, and it can't benefit you in any way? It can't take care of any of your needs. It can't suffice for you in any way, shape, or form. Now, this is a question. Now, again, when you hear this type of a question, you can't help but think, your mind goes immediately to this being a, what type of question? Rhetorical question. Like, think about it. Why are you doing that? Does that really make sense? But he's not asking. The Mufassirun explain that the tone of it, and even the word lima, it's not a rhetorical question. He's honestly, sincerely talking to him. And he's asking him, like, Dad, I really want to understand. Why do you worship this idol? This idol can't provide anything to you. Why do you worship this idol? So he's honestly, sincerely asking the question. He's like, I wanted to talk to you. And I wanted to ask you, why do you worship these idols? And then it's not a rhetorical question. He doesn't say, why do you worship these idols? And he launches into a rant and a speech. No, he says, why do you worship these idols? And then listen. Allow him to respond. Turn this into a dialogue. Make it productive. So that's the first thing. That he's not starting off by preaching or talking. He's actually letting the Father first talk. And posing a question. Allowing those roles to be established. Maintaining those same roles. Yes, you are the Father. I am the Son. I'm not trying to flip the script here. I'm not trying to say that from here on out, you're going to have to listen to me. Even though being a prophet and a messenger of Allah, if anyone was within his rights to do that, Ibrahim would have been. But he's not doing that. He's asking a question. And he's allowing the Father to first speak. The Father is the older one here. He's the responsible one here. He's the one in charge here. So he's allowing the Father to speak first. He's extending that respect to the Father. And then even how he constructs his argument is very interesting. He says, Ma la yasma'u. Why do you worship that which doesn't listen? Which doesn't listen. Why? And then he says, and doesn't see. It doesn't listen and it doesn't see. Ma la yasma'u wa la yubsir. Doesn't listen and doesn't see. First he begins by presenting very tangible, practical points to think about. Doesn't see and it doesn't hear and it doesn't see. Doesn't listen and it doesn't see. So something very practical, very tangible. He doesn't begin with some long, drawn-out philosophical argument. Common sense, common talk, basic discussion, basic discourse. That's the other thing here. That sometimes when I go out and I seek some knowledge and I come home, then I come home ready to drop like some long 8-line hadith. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. All right, easy there, buddy. Easy there. All right. So that's not how you start. It doesn't start out by, in usul al-fiqh it says, keep your usul al-fiqh to yourself. All right, because that's the answer you're going to get. Why don't you go clean your room and keep your usul al-fiqh to yourself? Put it in the drawer where it belongs. All right. So that's a response. Because you entered the conversation in the wrong way. So something very practical, very common, very basic, very common sense. That Dad, you taught me sensibility. You taught me to have common sense. to be practical. And so why are you worshiping something that doesn't listen and doesn't see? But then he does go on. He says, وَلَا يُغْنِي عَنْكَ شَيْئًا. And it also does not suffice for any of your needs. It doesn't benefit you in any way. It doesn't take